When we hear the name Titanic, the first images that surface are of grandeur, tragedy, and the icy waters of the Atlantic swallowing the unsinkable ship, but beyond the famous accounts and Hollywood retellings, there exist untold stories buried in the silence of history. Stories of forgotten passengers, unexplained coincidences, mysterious warnings, and chilling aftermaths that still intrigue historians and storytellers alike. The Titanic was not merely a luxurious liner on its maiden voyage, it was a floating city of dreams and secrets, carrying 2,124 souls from all walks of life, from millionaires and aristocrats who dined under crystal chandeliers to immigrants with nothing more than hope stitched into their clothes. And while the sinking is often remembered as an unavoidable tragedy, whispers from survivors and investigators suggest that fate was shaped by overlooked warnings, human arrogance, and choices that echo into eternity. One lesser-known story tells of the 8 men from the ship's band who famously played until the very end, but few know that their families were forced to pay for the uniforms they wore that night. A cruel reminder of how even heroism was overshadowed by corporate greed. And then there's the tale of Violet Jessup, a stewardess and nurse who not only survived the Titanic, but also disasters on its sister ships, Olympic and Britannic, earning her the title of Unsinkable Woman, though she rarely spoke about the trauma that haunted her nights. Another forgotten figure is the Japanese survivor Masabumi Hosono, who managed to find a spot on a lifeboat but was shunned for the rest of his life in Japan, accused of dishonoring his nation for living when so many died, his personal letters later revealing the crushing guilt he carried. Strange premonitions also surrounded the ship, with novelist Morgan Robertson writing a book in 1898 called Futility, which described a massive, unsinkable ship named Titan that struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic, a chilling piece of fiction that mirrored the Titanic's fate with eerie precision, leaving many to wonder if destiny had been scripted long before the voyage began. Among the second- and third-class passengers were families who never made headlines, like the Goodwin family. 2 parents and 6 children emigrating from England to America, none of whom survived, their story largely erased by time, yet their lives represent the countless silenced voices. Even in first class, beneath the wealth and luxury, drama unfolded as John Jacob Astor IV, one of the richest men aboard, saw his young pregnant wife placed on a lifeboat while he himself stayed behind, calmly smoking a cigarette before the sea consumed him, an image of resignation that contrasted with the chaos surrounding him. There are also stories of sacrifice like the millionaire Benjamin Guggenheim, who changed into evening wear, telling others he was prepared to go down like a gentleman, or the crew members who worked below deck, shoveling coal and keeping lights running until the final moments. Their names rarely honored in the mainstream retelling. One of the most haunting accounts comes from stewardess Annie Robinson, who claimed to hear eerie groaning sounds echoing through the decks days before the collision, an omen she never forgot. While others spoke of mysterious wireless signals that went ignored, including multiple iceberg warnings from nearby ships, the most notable being the Californian, which sat within range but failed to respond properly, its crew later accused of negligence as hundreds froze to death within sight of safety. After the sinking, the stories did not end, as survivors carried with them scars and secrets. Some refused to ever sail again, while others used their brush with death to reshape their lives, like the young 19-year-old Charles Lightoller, the ship's second officer who survived on an overturned lifeboat, later fighting heroically in World War I and World War II, yet seldom speaking of that cold night. Even the wreck itself, lying in darkness nearly 12,500 feet below the surface, tells stories through the artifacts found, like a pair of children's shoes that spoke of innocence lost, or a perfectly preserved violin believed to belong to bandleader Wallace Hartley, discovered decades later as silent testimony to music that calmed the doomed. Conspiracy theories, too, form part of the Titanic's untold narrative. From claims that it was actually her sister ship, the Olympic, switched in an insurance scam, to suspicions that powerful figures allowed the ship to sink as part of a cover-up. Though most historians dismiss these, they add another layer of intrigue to a story that refuses to die. Even today, researchers continue to uncover details, like letters written just hours before the disaster, voices from the past that reveal fear, hope, and denial, showing us that Titanic was more than a shipwreck. It was a mirror of human ambition and fragility. The tragedy forced sweeping changes in maritime law, from requiring enough lifeboats for all to establishing the International Ice Patrol. But behind every regulation is the memory of someone who never came home. These untold stories remind us that Titanic is not just about the numbers, 2,500 dead, 700 survivors. It's about individuals whose lives carried dreams, fears, and legacies that ripple across generations. And as we revisit their tales, we realize that history is not just written by what happened, but also by what was forgotten, buried beneath waves, waiting for voices to bring it back to the surface.